So our next topic is value chain analysis, and these are the 5 topics that are covered under value chain analysis: value and customer perception, value chain analysis, supply chain, and value engineering. So before we go into details, let us basically discuss what is value. Value is the benefit that the customer expects from a product. Value to the producer means the profit. So when we sell a certain product to the customer has a certain value in his mind for that product, the value that he drives or the benefit that he drives from that product. So the customer puts a price of $500. This is what the customer is willing to pay. Customer is ready to pay $500, but I have set the price of my product as just $399. Now the customer wants to pay $500 because he believes the good is of better quality. He wants to pay $500. He's willing to pay $500. He's ready to pay $500. But I just charge $399. Now this is important. Customer wants to pay more. I'm charging less price. So customer gets a benefit which is called consumer surplus. He wants to pay $500. I charge $399. So the difference, $101, this is consumer surplus, the consumer benefit, the difference between what he wants to pay versus what he actually pays. Now if you look at the things from my side, to me the product cost only $199, including direct material, labor, all the costs. Now the gap between the price I charge versus the cost, of course we know it's profit margin. So gentlemen, remember, the business will sustain in the long run if I am able to make profit, and at the same time the customer is able to drive consumer surplus. We are both happy. Customer wanted to pay more but he paid less, and I sold an item for $399 which cost me $199. I'm happy. So we are both happy. Mutually we have a good transaction where we are both happy. And such businesses, they sustain. Those businesses who can keep customers happy by providing them the consumer surplus, and those businesses that are able to generate profit, they are both happy. So this relationship will go on and business will continue to provide services to the consumer. So this is something that is essential for business continuity, that you are continuously able to provide customers with what they are looking for at low price, right? So to remain on the market, if you want to stay in the market, to sustain, product must provide value to the customer, benefit to the customer, and profit to the seller and profit to the producer. In this case, both win, and that's how the business is sustained. That's given in these paras. Then next, a very important idea where you most likely be tested is value chain. This value chain model was given by Michael E. Porter. Michael E. Porter we discussed in the previous topic, capacity management. He gave you some steps that you need to follow when you decide your capacity expansion. Michael E. Porter is also here to help you in understanding how the businesses can create benefit for customers. So Michael E. Porter said that a business performs 2 types of activities. One are primary activities, other are support activities. Primary activities are research and development. They generate customer value. They create customer value. Your customer feels happy when he uses your product. Primary activities involve product design. Consider Apple iPhone. Lots of money spent on R&D, customers are happy. Product designs are amazing, customers are happy. Manufacturing is done by state-of-the-art manufacturers like Foxconn in Taiwan. Remember, most of the iPhones are assembled, shipped from Taiwan. The company directly involved is Foxconn that does the Apple's iPhone work there. So manufacturing is outstanding, customer is happy. iPhone's marketing and distribution is very effective, customers are happy. And when there is a product problem, customers can get their problem resolved. These are primary activities, and if a business does them well, customer will be happy, customer will be willing to pay more price, and that is the reason iPhone is the most expensive mobile on the market. because excellent R&D, amazing design, good manufacturing, effective marketing and distribution, and effective customer maintenance, customer service. So these are primary activities. If a business is able to satisfy the customer, create value through these activities, a business can charge more price and hence make more profit. Then there are some other activities also called support activities. R&D is not possible without people, smart people, PhDs. R&D is not possible without information technology. Manufacturing is not possible without inventory management. Manufacturing is not possible without plant maintenance. So these primary activities that create value for the customer, they must be supported by some support activities. All these are support activities that support these primary, because customer values these. In order to support these primary activities, we have support activities that will enhance upon these primary activities. And both of these together, they will create value for the business and for the customer. Hence, you can say that primary activities generate profit and margin. Support activities also generate profit and margin. This is a very simplified version of value chain, and you just should focus only on this. This is what is given in the textbook, in the Gleim book. But if you go for the original version of the value chain, the original model, this is something like that. We don't need to do that. It's just that you need to remember that the primary activities, they create margin for the business, and the support activity also create margin for the business. So this is the original model given by Michael E. Porter. The model that you have in the textbook is simplified one, which makes quite appeal and quite simple to understand and interpret. Okay, now we need to discuss value chain in little detail because it's an important topic. We discussed that value chain involves two types of activities, primary activities and support activities. It's a very important strategical tool. We can identify the activities that create value. We can focus on those activities that are consistent with the firm's overall strategy, the overall way we achieve our goals. We can create customer value through these activities. There are certain steps. Let us discuss these briefly. The first step in value chain analysis is to identify the firm's value creating activity. Our research and development, our manufacturing, our product design and testing, our customer service. These are our value creating activities because they create benefit for the customer and of course profit for the business. The second step involves that how we can use each of these value creating activities for the business advantage, the competitive advantage. Remember, firms have a competitive advantage if they can do things better than others and hence earn more profit. So you need to link how these value creating activities, good research, better design, good manufacturing, effective customer service, how we can use these value creating activity to create a competitive advantage. Competitive advantage means you have an edge over your competitors. You can do things better than others. This second step has multiple sub-steps. Means we build teams. We build value creating teams. Different departments are to be brought in. So basically it's a team effort. It's a team effort. We bring management accountants, CMAs. We bring engineering staff. We bring in together the marketing staff. We bring in together the distribution. We bring in the customer service. We bring them together. And then we identify what are the value creating activities and how we can convert these value creating activities into competitive advantage for the business. We see what are the opportunities that are there in the economy for us. We see what are the threats we might face. I'm sure you remember the SWOT analysis. What are the strengths and weaknesses our business has, and what are the opportunities and threats that are emerging from the outside environment. So these teams will identify strengths and weaknesses and accordingly will make sure that the opportunities that are arising from external environment, we can take benefit from those opportunities. Then we have the next topic, supply chain. Let's just go back and discuss here. Now look at this. Here R&D is inside the business. Product design internal, manufacturing internal, marketing internal, customer service. All these are internal business activities. But you should not forget that there are many other firms that are connected with us. Our suppliers, our different service providers, insurance providers, bankers, so on and so forth. So there are many connected firms that work with us in collaboration so that we can bring in the products and services for our customers. So this idea is called supply chain. So what supply chain? The basic understanding is given in this line here. Supply chain is the flow of materials and services from their original sources to the final consumer. So how the raw material is obtained by the business, how does the business convert this into finished product, and how this finished product is delivered to the customer. So basically it starts from your suppliers and it ends with your customers. So all those businesses that are involved within this sequence are studied. This is called supply chain. And of course it involves or it includes more than one firm. Our own firm, maybe our 4 suppliers, and then our thousands of customers. So the question is, why do we need to go to this extent? Why do we need to go back to our suppliers, and why do we need to study all these intermediary parties that are involved in helping us convert the raw material into finished goods and then delivering it to the end users? Why? Why do we need to do that? We need to analyze all phases of supply chain and value chain. For what? We know, yes, it extends from the sources of supply, where we get our supplies from, till the final retailer, where we deliver the goods to the customer. We study all these phases, all these stages. Why? We have not yet been able to answer the question. Why? So that uncertainty is reduced. We want to reduce uncertainty. What uncertainty? Okay, now let's discuss. I sell a certain product X, and this product is sold across my country, in all the provinces and all the cities. And there is a massive demand. There is a daily consumption of 1 million units of X. Daily usage. Now, imagine if there is some production glitch because of unavailability of material, or maybe unavailability of labor, or maybe the goods are ready, but maybe there is a problem of distribution. There are limited numbers of logistics or vehicles that bring my product to the market. So I just don't want that to happen. I don't want to lose my customer. This is something I had to deliver across the country on daily basis. I can't take this risk. So what we do in supply chain, we just focus on all the phases from where we take in material till the point where we deliver the goods to the final retailer for onward customer delivery. We need to make sure that there is nothing wrong in this whole chain. The collection of phases that starts from the raw material source provider, raw material provider and service provider to the final retailer. We need to reduce this uncertainty. That's why we study all phases of supply chain. Now, how do we do that? There is a very interesting concept called bullwhip or backlash effect. I would like to explain this. Bullwhip or backlash effect. What is it? Let me show you from the next slide. We'll come back again. This is the bullwhip. Okay. Bullwhip is something that we use to tame horses and cattle. It's like a tool we hit animals with so that to tame them. So the idea here is that when you hold the whip in your hand, and if you just give a slightest squiggle, with the passage of time, this squiggle will increase in amplitude. As it goes along to this line, the size will go up, and by the time it reaches the end, it maximizes. So from a small squiggle to a large surge like this is called bullwhip. Now what exactly is it, and how does it help us reduce uncertainty? Let me explain this to you. Now, let's say there is a surge or there is a slight increase in demand in my product at the customer level. Customer used to purchase 3 units of my product daily. Now they have started to purchase 5 units, right? So this customer has increased his demand from 3 to 5. So this is just a single customer. Remember, it's just a single customer. But there will be hundreds of such customers who might have taken the same decision to increase their consumption. So by the time their demand increase reaches my warehouse, it's the sum of the demand of different customers. Remember, I have maybe 150 warehouses. When these 150 warehouses demand go up, by the time it reaches the distribution center, the demand becomes magnified, because this is the demand from all these 150. Just like this is the sum of all the demands of customers. This is sum of the demands of all warehouses. And when there are 5 distribution centers I have in my country, so by the time when this demand reaches me, it could be a massive surge in demand. See, so if you have an eye on the supply chain, and if there is any customer increase in demand of your product, you can sense that and you can plan this accordingly, so that by the time when the demand reaches your plant or level, you should be prepared to produce this much so that the needs could be met. This is the idea of reducing uncertainty. You keep an eye on your customer, what they want. You keep an eye on your supplier, so they provide you on time. So we just want to make sure that our customers get what they want from us. If they want more, we should be able to provide them more. Our customers should not go home empty-handed when we were unable to provide them. So that is the idea of bullwhip, and this is what reduces uncertainty, right? Safi Danone is one of the largest milk producers in the Middle East, headquartered in Saudi Arabia. So they provide milk across many countries. They have a very, very close look on supply chain. They don't want customers to start using something else. So they just make sure that the customer's demand is always kept in check, and so that whenever there's surge in or increase in demand, we are able to meet the needs. We should not give any chance to our competitors to take our market share away. Okay, now some other points we need to discuss about the supply chain and value chain. So value chain is internal within the business. Supply chain is internal plus external. Both of these should be used to meet customers' requirements, because our focus is customer. Our customers should not go empty-handed. We want our customers to get what they want, because it is one of the critical success factors, customer satisfaction. Not only that, supply chain management helps you to reduce your cost wherever the cost savings can be made. It helps increase efficiency so that we can bring our products and services when they are needed, so that our customers do not become unhappy. Then we continuously improve the quality of our products so that our customers feel happy. It is entirely customer focused, because we need to keep them happy. We need to supply them with the goods and services so they receive our goods and services where they need it. Then by keeping an eye on the complete supply chain, we are able to identify where we could reduce our cost and where we can minimize our defects. Since we have the whole view in front of us from raw materials to customer, so we can bring the products faster to our customer. Product development and customer service delivery could be much faster, and since we are in touch with our customers, we can constantly innovate. We can bring new things in our product so that our customers, whatever they want from us, we are able to deliver them so they feel satisfied with our customer and they continue to purchase from us. Then the next concept is a very important and interesting one: value engineering. I would like to explain with the help of an example. Let's say I want to sell a product at $100. This is my target selling price, target sale price. And I want to make a profit of $30. This is my target profit. So which means if I want to sell the product at 100 and I want to make a target profit of 30, then I must be able to produce this at 70. This is called the target cost. I should be able to produce this item at 70. When I discuss with my production manager, who is a CMA, I ask him what is the cost of production. He adds up and he says, sir, cost of production is 120. Wallahi lazim. My cost is 120 and I need to bring this down to $70. How can I do it? I should not compromise on quality. I should not do bad production. So how do I do it without compromising on quality? This is done through value engineering. What is value engineering? Value engineering, as you can see in this statement, it's a means of reaching the targeted cost levels. We want to reduce our cost from 120 to $70. How do we do it without compromising on quality? We do it through value engineering. We don't want to sell dirty or bad standard or low standard product to our customers. We want to make sure that the customer satisfaction is not sacrificed. The purpose is to minimize costs, but without sacrificing customer satisfaction. Customers' satisfaction must not be compromised. So in value engineering, we distinguish between two types of cost. Cost incurrence and locked-in costs. Cost incurrence is something that is controllable in your hand. Cost incurrence is something that you can manage. But this cost, locked-in cost, this is a part of the designing cost. When we design a certain product, certain costs which are dependent upon supplier pricing are not in our hands. So these are less controllable. So what we should do at the start of manufacturing or designing a product, we should try to keep these locked-in costs which are less in our control as low as possible. Right? We try to find ways how we can reduce these locked-in costs, these designing costs which are less controllable. And then of course the cost that is incurred or incurrence cost, this is something that is manageable, that is in our control, that we can identify. And further within these you will identify there are two types of activities. One is called the value adding activities. Other is called the non-value adding activities. Non-value adding activities like the storage, rent paid to the warehouse, insurance of the raw material. Then we might have material handling. We might have production scheduling. All these costs are irrelevant. I don't need mustawda. I don't need to store. I don't need to handle. I don't need to go for production scheduling. Right? So these kinds of costs which are non-value adding, they can be eliminated. So we should focus on those costs which are value adding. These are the costs that the customers care for. This is what we should focus, and we should minimize or eliminate all those costs which are not needed. This way we can reach at the targeted cost levels, and this is what we call value engineering, and this ends your topic, value chain analysis. Okay. Process analysis. Process value analysis, how value can be added in a product, is a key component of activity-based management. This is ABC in the previous topic, that links product costing, and a reduction of number of cost pools. Reduction of number of cost pool is wrong. In ABC, activity-based management, there is in fact increase in number of cost pools. We have more cost pool. Material handling, we have scheduling, we have machining, drill press activity, activity X, Y, Z. We have many cost pools. So reduction of number of cost pool is incorrect, because ABM, activity-based management, activity-based costing, it results in more cost pools. Accumulation of heterogeneous cost pools, this is again wrong. Accumulation of homogeneous cost pools. The cost pools, like if this is a cost pool of material handling, all the costs related to material handling should be included here. Like salary of the person who runs or uses forklifter, depreciation of the tools, so on and so forth related to material handling, all the costs must be here. So the word here is not heterogeneous, it should be homogeneous. Accumulation of homogeneous cost pools. So this is incorrect. Under activity-based management, overhead rates based on broad averages is wrong. Under activity-based management, we have different rates. We have a separate rate for pool A, separate for B, separate for D, E, F, G, H, I, J, and so on. So overhead rates are based on broad averages. No, this is true for absorption costing. This is true for absorption costing. In activity-based costing, we have different rates of different cost pool. This is incorrect. Then only option we have is B. Process value analysis is a key component of activity-based management that links product costing and continuous improvement. Activity-based management, ABC, is a process improvement tool also. In the previous lecture, we discussed theory of constraints versus ABC. Theory of constraint is also a process improvement tool, but it's a short term. ABC is a process improvement tool, and it's a long term. So ABC, activity-based management, is a tool for continuous improvement. Then a systematic approach to reach the targeted cost level during the value chain analysis without compromising on customer satisfaction. This is called value engineering, and this is what we have just read. Okay, now this is a good one. Graham Company develops computer programs to meet customer specific or special requirements. How should Graham categorize payment to employees who develop these programs? So these are the computer programmers, developers. So salary paid to them, it's a direct cost, because the cost paid to developers, it can directly be traced in that particular software we made. So it's a direct cost, yes. Is it a value-adding cost? Remember, value-adding cost is a cost that increases customer satisfaction. Salary paid to developers is a cost that is directly related to the development of the software. A good software means that this money is well spent. So yes, it's a value-adding cost. What is not a value-adding cost is storage, material handling. I don't care about storage. As a customer, I don't care about storage. As a customer, I don't care about material handling. As a customer, I don't care about production scheduling. As a customer, I don't care about the insurance of the goods. What I care is my goods should be durable. My goods should be developed by good developers. My goods should be long-lasting. It should meet my needs. So it's a value-adding cost, yes. So in both cases, it's a value-adding cost. So that means it's going to be A. The term referring to the excess of the price of a good over its cost. Okay, now let's say this is the cost of the good, $60, and I sell this item at $80. So the gap between the price at which you sell versus its cost, what is this difference called? This difference is not consumer surplus. Why? Because consumer surplus is what the consumer wants to pay, what is the value that he attaches, value versus price. This gap is called the consumer surplus. I just write this as CS. But here we are looking for the gap between price and cost. The difference between price and cost is what you call the profit margin. Let me show you. So the difference between price and cost is profit margin, but the difference between price and value is called consumer surplus. So we are looking here the difference between price and cost, so it's clearly profit margin. So that would make B to be our correct option. Which of the following is not a component of value chain? Primary activities, yes. Support activities, yes. But there is no such term as secondary activities. The product is, yes, product is one of our main concern. So primary activities, support activities, and the product or service itself, yes. But secondary activities, wrong. There is no such thing as secondary activities in the value chain analysis. Okay, then next, the flow of materials and services from their original sources to the final consumers. See, the flow of materials and services from their original sources to final consumers is what you call supply chain. So this basically is supply chain. Then we have an outside consultant has been hired by a manufacturing firm to evaluate each of the firm's major products, beginning with the designs of the products and continuing through the manufacture, warehousing, distribution, sale, and services. So the consultant has also been able to, so look at this. This consultant is looking at all phases of production, manufacturing, warehousing, distribution. So basically, it appears to be a value chain analysis. Let's see. The consultant has also been requested to compare the firm's major products with the firm that are manufacturing and marketing the similar products. So comparison between us and another firm. So this consultant will also make comparison, and the consultant is to identify where customer values can be increased, identify where cost can be reduced, and provide a better understanding of the linkages with the customers, suppliers, and other firms in the industry. The type of analysis that the consultant most likely has been asked to perform for the manufacturing firm is clearly the value chain analysis, because he is looking at all aspects of primary and support activities that go into manufacturing the product and delivering it to the customer, so that customer satisfaction can be ensured, provide better understanding of the linkages between customers and suppliers, and increase the customer value. That is clearly value chain analysis, and that completes your topic, value chain analysis.